Have you ever had this realization where you just realize that you've actually been playing a game? Or another common trope of this is the idea that you've only been playing for an hour when in fact you've been playing for 5. This overall is immersion at work. For me, the most prominent way of this happening was always within Skyrim. Imagine that you're now just walking through the hills towards Riften and then the amazing soundtrack just starts playing. And then you remember, whilst all of this is happening, you're fully immersed within this screen, that you're sat in your room. You're looking at the screen. You aren't actually walking around this world. And somehow, I'm still playing the same game for the last decade. I've had this happen plenty of times, but I find it really interesting how many people in our modern day sense of how we talk about games just don't think immersion is important, or just think it's a funny idea that kind of just gets belittled in a way when talking about games. I wanted to spend some time in today's video talking about the importance of immersion and how it actually acts in games to give us this sense of effectively a flow state. So I think the best place to start is going to be talking about what is immersion. It's a word that you'll hear commonly thrown around when it comes to many different games such as Skyrim or The Witcher 3 or even Elden Ring. Now the word itself comes from immersing objects into water, which basically just ends up translating into mental immersion, which just ends up being surrounding your brain with a load of coating that makes you feel like 4 hours has gone by when in reality it's actually been 12. The more common comments that you'll hear when talking about immersion is the idea of I feel like Batman or that I feel like Spider-Man. The world feels real, or even that the characters feel like they're genuine people. All of this is effectively giving people the false sense of reality that feels real. And that is what true immersion is able to do. It breaks into your mind into this idea of this false sense of what this is. The world itself feels believable. The character that you're playing as, you can connect on more than an emotional level. For some reason, there is something about it that just keeps you gripped in. And in a way, in my opinion anyway, which is kind of where this all links in together, immersion is effectively linking together the idea of keeping you into the world because it's believable and the characters are interesting, and then also tapping into your flow state. A flow state is commonly referred to more within the self-improvement and productivity space, but honestly I do think it actually applies to pretty much every single form of media, and everything across the board wants to tap into this. But they don't normally want to do it in a productive manner, because normally when people are talking about getting into a flow state, there will be that little bit of friction for the first 10 minutes, and then out of nowhere you're now doing all of your work for the next 4 hours perfectly capable. However, with games, they kind of remove that extra 10 minutes at the beginning, trying, get you in the door. Normally it's very easy to start playing a game, and then it becomes really hard to get out. They want to tap into this sense of flow to keep you hooked into their world and keeping on exploring for longer periods of times. Social media apps effectively do the exact same thing, trying to keep you on the platforms for as long as possible. They're pretty much just feeding into addiction and how our body deals with different things such as a flow state and getting involved within it. For games though, it's really crucial and important to do this, otherwise most people just wouldn't play them in the first place. Just before though we continue, if you wanted to hit subscribe to the channel, it would be amazing, it would help out everything, and also if you want to join the memberships you can do as well, exclusive content over there that you guys can choose everything. But anyway, immersion within games is actually something that I would say is overall one of the most important things, as it utilizes this flow state the most out of any other concept outside of just outright, malicious gambling tactics. But more importantly, the end goal of everything is to do this. Most games out there are building a world for you to fall in love with, a soundtrack that makes you want to connect with the world, and systems that keep you thinking, and NPCs that fit into the area, or in some cases a main character that feels genuine and as if you are actually feeling like you are Batman. All of that is effectively immersing you into the game. That's everything trying to attempt to get into your subconscious, or basically saying, hey, everything else not important. Let's enter into flow state and put it all into playing the game. So I wanted to talk about 4 games in particular, being Skyrim, Red Dead 2, Call of Duty, and Arkham City. All of these games use immersion in different manners and keep you hooked in by tapping into your brain's flow state, or attempting to at least drive your sense of achievement throughout these games, even if there's literally 0 achievement gained outside of the gaming world. So let's get started with the one that I think most people will be questioning the existence within that list, which is Call of Duty. Now what I meant by Call of Duty more is that on average most of the games are kind of similar within the franchise, so we're going to just take Modern Warfare 2, the most recent release, as the main example here. The Call of Duty games are pretty much famous for tapping into this reward system within your brain, and I would argue that the game is also tapping into your sense of flow as well, as both pretty much exist within the same vein, it's just one is a bit more manipulated. And depending on how they are utilized, it can really change the way that someone is going to be playing the game for really long periods of time and how they feel after playing the game. But what Call of Duty does really well is effectively giving you this idea in your head that you're running around with your friends shooting people. That's pretty much what you're doing in every single FPS game, but I think Call of Duty does a good job of effectively just immersing you within that. But really what Call of Duty ends up doing is effectively allowing the average person who's never going to experience that, you know, the sense of just combat or anything else inside of their lives, of being a soldier. Even if the game is inaccurate in many different ways and is nowhere near real life, it presents itself in a way that the average person is going to find immersing. Everything from the weapons, the outfits, the map layouts, the character communication, the audio cues, all of this immerses the player into being a soldier for 10 minutes. But that 10 minutes will go by really quickly as it's actually gripping its teeth into you and engaging you the whole time. When people talk about these games though and other FPS games like it, they often overlook this idea of immersion purely because they get looked at as casual trash games to play by the elitist gamers among us. But in reality, I'd say Call of Duty, Battlefield, and R6 all use immersion to being in a sense of realism to the player, which pretty much is the main drawing factor to these games. And overall, I'd say the sense of immersion that these games can bring of being this soldier, being this person going to war, all of the characters, the way they talk to one another, the sounds of the grenades, the sounds of the guns, the way everything works within them, even if some of them are broken, even though everyone complains about the new Call of Duty every year and then remisses it the next year. Everything all adds to this sense of immersion. There's a massive catalyst towards the success of each of these franchises, and in particular Call of Duty. A game like Red Dead 2 truly makes you feel like you're in the world of the Wild West, with moments of worry about being robbed on one side and then being a complete badass on the other. Red Dead 2's way of immersing you into the game, it uses the same sort of tactics as Call of Duty, with many different aspects such as the sound design and just basically the overall look and feel of the games. But it also adds in these breathable areas and believability factor to the world. A lot of people overlook this idea nowadays as nothing more of garbage takes, but I think it is a really important factor of keeping people within the game of RDR2, as many games out there like The Witcher 3, Red Dead do this perfectly. Rockstar made a world that truly brings you this idea that you are an outlaw in the Wild West. This is something that is really important to this game, as it makes you feel like you are belonging in the world. They immerse you within the world with such basic things such as the sound of your horse galloping, shotguns reloading, weathered faces on characters, the way you might move when making a decision in one way or another, and the activities you do outside of being the main character. But there is also plenty of more things that they did within this game to bring this sense of immersion. But what they did with this game though is they made a game that is inherently very slow. Overall, the way this game plays is a very slow game, but the way you get immersed into it is effectively a slow gripping, and then eventually you just kind of forget what's happened because so much time has just flown by even though the game is very slow. But the game that ended up actually mastering immersion for the first time within the superhero franchise was Arkham City, where you end up feeling like you are Batman. Now, I do love the meme of feeling like Batman, but this game truly does embrace that idea. This game and Marvel's Spider-Man are both great examples of just making the player feel like they're a character, which is in a sense immersing you within the world. When you feel like the character that you are playing as, you end up enjoying the experience a lot more. Many games will try and connect you with the character more on an emotional level more than anything else, but very few games can actually make you connect for no other reason than feeling like these characters. When you glide around Arkham or you're swinging across New York City, both games' traversals end up making you feel like you are these characters. You hear the way the cities are either dark and gritty within the Batman games or alive and a city-like actual experience within Spider-Man. But both games end up bringing you the sense of each character having the combat feel weighty but fast at the same time, making you truly feel like a superhero. What these games do for immersion is truly making you feel as if you are playing and actually being the characters. You're not just controlling some random character walking around Greece that you do not care about. But Skyrim for me is a game that uses music to truly build atmosphere and immersion. Skyrim doesn't necessarily have a main character that you would fall in love with and connect with. Not even on an emotional level or feeling like you are that character. And this game doesn't have small audio cues to immerse you into the world because birds are flying by. What this game has instead is a soundtrack that could rival any game out there, and a world that feels genuine in nature. Nothing feels particularly out of place, and everything makes sense for why it's there. The NPCs interact in a way that makes sense, but most importantly, you end up drawn into this world because of its music. When you're wandering through the forest and you have a song like Dawn start playing in the background, or when you're starting a fight and you have the massively epic soundtrack start kicking in, you know exactly what you're getting in for. Everything fits and everything keeps you immersed through this antics. Immersion is either pushing you into a world or surrounding you in many different aspects, from the way the military might sound within COD, the weighty hits within Batman, the weathered appearances of characters within Red Dead, or the music within Skyrim. All of this adds to a sense of immersion and in turn overrides your flow state to keep you engaged within these games and keep you exploring. Now for me, I do think immersion is one of the most important things when it does come to a game. A lot of people do write this off nowadays, as I think a lot of games out there don't really think about this like right away. Overall, when people talk about immersion, it's kind of like written off as this idea of like, ha ha ha, they're talking about immersion, what a useless thing to talk about. They could talk about the game design, they could talk about this or this or this, but all of that adds to the sense of immersion. So I think immersion as an overall concept is something that we do need to think about a bit more, because it kind of keeps us engaged in the game. I want more games where I sit down and I just kind of lose sense of time for a bit. I don't want to have to keep on thinking of, oh, I've got to go do this, I need to go do that, or oh, I've just spent an hour and now I'm bored in this game. I want more games out there where I actually feel immersed as the character or in the world itself, or by the audio cues like you get within Red Dead 2 or the music within Skyrim. But yeah, I thought I'd make this video just discussing immersion and how I think immersion itself links into flow states, and also obviously just the way that addiction works within our brains. Loads of different things for how games take over and override different cues of everything, basically. But yeah, if you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like, do subscribe for more content down below, and as well as that, if you have any recommendations for anything you want to see in the future of this channel, it will be quite a while till I get around to the videos, but you can always let me know in the comments down below, and feel free to join the channel memberships, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.